I'm really grateful to my father-in-law. Thanks to him, we're having such a luxurious honeymoon. What do you mean? We used my father-in-law's bank savings. What did you say? When I called my brother and his wife, who didn't show up at Dad's funeral. The sister-in-law blurted out the truth with no hesitation. It was infuriating enough that they skipped helping with the funeral preparations. But to think they also swindled Dad's savings. We were able to travel around Miami in a luxury rental car, stay in fancy hotels, and already spent $30,000. There's still money left, and we plan to enjoy the trip until the very end of the holiday. While I remained silent, the sister-in-law continued to chatter away. Wait a minute. Remembering the balance in my late dad's bank account, I couldn't help but snicker. What's so funny? Are you going crazy because you didn't get a share of the inheritance? It's not that I've gone mad. I bursted out laughing, imagining the surprised faces of my brother and his wife when they find out the truth. My name is Brittany. This is a story of a tumultuous experience I had 10 years ago. At that time, I was a 30-year-old ordinary office worker. My mother had passed away in an accident when I was in my second year of high school. My father, James, was a kind and gentle man who loved my mother dearly. He had no time to grieve, as he organized my mother's funeral and tried his best to reassure us. Your mother is no longer here, but don't worry about anything. I'll take care of everything until you both can stand on your own feet. He said this with a haggard face after the first 7 days of mourning had passed. We had no reliable relatives, and I think these words were also his way of making a commitment. Working hard at his job and household chores, he raised us without remarrying. I respected my father for that, but my younger brother Jamie was different. Jamie, 2 years younger than me, was good-looking and performed well in school. But he was obsessed with material things and money, always acting in his own best interests. Jamie always complained about our father's unfamiliarity with housework but never helped, citing studies or other tasks. Come on. Stop relying on Dad and me for everything. And at least take care of your laundry and dishes. Give me a break. I'm still a child by law. It's my job to play and study. You'll take care of me, right, Dad? Perhaps it was because he was the long-awaited son and was spoiled. Jamie scoffed at me helping with household chores and told our father, who was cooking dinner, I talked about Mom, and my friends invited me to dine with them. I'm going out, so give me some money. Wait a minute. Can't you see what Dad is doing? How can you say such a thing? Huh? I'm popular, unlike you. Come on, quick. Just $10 will do. Take it, and make sure to come back early. Dad handed him the money. Jamie left without even a proper thank you. Seeing this, my father calmly said to me, who was angry. At that age, it's normal to prioritize friends over family. It's just a rebellious phase. He'll settle down in a few years. However, Jamie's attitude showed no signs of maturing as time passed. When he became a college student, he took advantage of our father paying his tuition fees and spent his time frivolously, constantly asking for money and only returning home to sleep. By this time, I had already started working and living alone in an apartment. I wanted to be independent and ease my father's burden as much as possible. Seeing my brother, who still acted like a spoiled child despite being an adult, I couldn't help but speak out. Jamie said, I managed to attend a college with low tuition fees because of my efforts. So it's only right for parents to give your kids spending money for fun. Besides, if we were really short on money, Dad should have just remarried some rich woman quickly to make life easier. His words mocked the feelings of Dad, who had been devoted to our mother. I was stunned by his words, trampling on our father's unwavering love for our mother. I discreetly informed Dad about Jamie's true nature, but he didn't seem to care. I chose not to remarry because of my own selfishness. Besides, Jamie is right, his hard work did reduce the college fees. Like I said before, I'll do what I can as a parent. With Jamie living at home, I couldn't say anything more. Even after graduating and getting a job, Jamie didn't move out, nor did he help with housework or contribute financially. What's wrong with using the money I earn for myself? Dad's my parent, it's only natural he takes care of me until I'm fully independent. He said this unashamedly, smirking while admiring a watch he bought as a reward for himself. At this time, Dad was soon to retire. I offered to send money to help with living expenses, but he refused. There's no reason for you to pay when you're not living with us. Besides, it's your hard-earned money, so use it as you like. If you have spare money, save it. Dad continued working diligently even after retirement, while Jamie lived comfortably. I couldn't bear seeing Dad's modest lifestyle and started bringing gifts on weekends. A few years later, Jamie contacted me out of the blue, saying he wanted me to meet someone. At a restaurant, I met Dad, Jamie, and a beautiful woman, all dressed in suits. Sis, let me introduce you to Wendy. I've decided to marry her. Wendy greeted me politely. I was relieved. She seemed calm and I hoped this marriage would finally make Jamie independent. Months after their wedding, I was swamped with work, not even having time to visit home. Half a year passed since I last saw Dad. When things settled, I planned to visit home, but then Dad called. Hello, Dad? It's been a while. I was thinking of coming over next break. What? What did you say? Dad's words left me colorless. He had been diagnosed with cancer and given 6 months to live. I was in shock. What about chemotherapy or life-prolonging treatment? Overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness, I could feel my legs trembling. However, Dad's response was unexpectedly different from what I had anticipated. No, I don't plan on doing any of that. Why not? If it's money you're worried about, I'll help as much as I can. It's not that. Sorry, but I have things I need to do. I'm quitting my job, but I think spending money on medication is a waste. Besides, your mother is waiting for me in heaven. Dad sounded resigned. Don't worry. I won't be a burden to you or your brother when I'm gone. Hearing this, I couldn't help but cry. Okay, Dad. If that's what you want. I accepted his words for now and hung up. Then, I immediately called Jamie. Despite Dad's words, I hoped he'd agree to treatment. But what did Dad mean by having things to do even after quitting his job? Puzzled, I waited for Jamie to answer. Hello? Yes? Jamie, listen. I explained what I had just heard and suggested we help with Dad's treatment costs. He didn't have cancer insurance, and with only 6 months left, the treatment cost should be significant. You've been living at home for a long time, relying on Dad's help, right? Now's the time to show some filial piety. I'm willing to contribute too, so let's both help Dad. What? Why? What? I was shocked by my brother's response. He seemed indifferent to our father's illness, muttering something on the phone. Oh, so Dad has cancer. In half a year, we'll have to be in our new house. I wonder if it'll work out. Wait, what are you talking about? Sis, can Dad still work and take care of the house as usual? That's what Wendy and I are worried about. What are you saying? Did you even listen? Dad only has 6 months to live. Why are you even concerned about such things? Because we live with Dad. What? To my surprise, Jamie revealed that he and Wendy had moved in with Dad right after their marriage. Not out of aversion, but with enthusiasm, saying it would save money. We want to live in an apartment and are saving up for the down payment. Living with Dad makes him happy, and we can save almost all our salaries. So it's working out great for all of us. Listening to him, it was clear he was still living a pampered life. This conversation helped me understand Dad's contradictory words earlier. Dad was tirelessly doing household chores while the young couple saved most of their income. Wendy's attitude towards my father, gradually losing restraint and becoming more dependent, was becoming visible. What kind of cohabitation is this? It's more like parasitism. Then all the more reason to give back some of that savings to Dad. It won't hurt you. Why should I? I already told you, our savings are for our own house. Besides, Dad has terminal cancer with metastases all over his body. It's hopeless. Even if he tries treatment, it won't make much difference, and it'll just burden him. Above all, it's a waste of money. A waste. Disappointed by his cold remarks, I continued. This is a serious family matter. Shouldn't children want their parents to live even a day or a second longer? That's just your opinion. Don't push it on me. Anyway, we're not going to waste our money on that. With that clear statement, Jamie hung up the phone, and I, frustrated and angry, threw my cell phone onto the sofa. I couldn't leave Dad with such a brother and his wife. I quickly arranged to cancel my apartment lease and decided to move back home. It would take more time, but I could still commute to work. And if anything happened to Dad, I could respond immediately. More than anything, I wanted to spend as much time as possible with Dad in his remaining days. A month later, when I returned home, the first thing I noticed was the disorderly lifestyle of my brother and his wife. Half-drunk beers, scattered cosmetics, and strewn clothes were everywhere. Dad was slowly picking up after them. As expected, the so-called cohabitation was just Dad supporting 2 grown children. Don't worry about the house. I'll take care of everything. Thank you. Brittany. After tucking a tired-looking Dad into bed, I sighed heavily in the living room. According to Dad, when Jamie and Wendy heard he had quit his job, they were shocked. But once they learned about his substantial retirement payout, they relaxed and continued living as usual. Moreover, they still relied on Dad for everything from household chores to living expenses, which was infuriating beyond belief. Dad said he wanted to do everything he could for his son and daughter-in-law's future happiness. But their ungratefulness was clear. That night, after Dad went to sleep, I encountered Jamie and Wendy for the first time since returning home. Had they always been this ostentatious? Perhaps because it had been a while. Jamie and Wendy seemed much more flamboyant than they were when they first got married. Their appearance had taken on a noticeably more extravagant flair. Jamie looked at me irritably. Hey, sis. Where's our dinner? Sister, you came back to do the housework instead of Dad, right? Then you should do it properly. The laundry is piling up. Are you always this sloppy, sis? No wonder you're not married. I was exasperated by their complaints, like children whining. I had anticipated some friction, but this was their first interaction with me after a long time. Couldn't they at least express some concern for Dad's condition, instead of just complaining about me? Look, I came back for Dad, not to take care of you too. What? You expect us to do housework? We both work late every day. Yes. Like Dad and me, and most adults in the world who work, also do their own housework. You're planning to buy a house, right? Learn to take care of yourselves now. I said that coldly. The couple kept insisting I do the housework and take Dad's place. But they eventually stopped when they saw I wouldn't budge, and they hardly looked at me anymore. They showed no concern for Dad, and either stayed in their room or went out. They probably had savings and were likely using laundromats, hotels, or public baths. I noticed our stock of instant noodles and juice was running low, and sometimes found their clothes mixed in with my laundry. Despite being irritated, I was too busy with work, house chores, and caring for Dad to complain about every little thing. As long as they didn't force their chores on me or Dad, I reluctantly turned a blind eye. What mattered to me was Dad's condition. He was getting weaker every day, spending more time in bed. I did my best to care for him and help with his end-of-life preparations, fulfilling his wishes as much as possible. Dad resisted life-extending treatments and medication until the end. About 6 months later, he lost consciousness, was taken to the hospital, and passed away. Jamie and Wendy didn't show up at the hospital, and I had to inform them of Dad's death over the phone. We're starting funeral preparations immediately. You two should be ready for that. Okay, got it. Jamie sounded hurried. Maybe he finally grasped the reality of Dad's passing. After sending Dad off at the ceremony hall, I returned home to find it empty. I felt no emotion. I had no expectations from Jamie and Wendy anymore. I immediately began funeral arrangements and served as the chief mourner. The funeral went smoothly, thanks to Dad's prior planning. I was comforted by the kind words and tears of the mourners. Jamie and Wendy didn't show up even once. Their absence was astonishing, and I tried to contact them, but their phones went straight to voicemail. I finally reached them the day before the first 7 days of mourning. Hello, sister? It was Wendy who answered Jamie's phone. The background was unusually noisy. He's busy at the front desk and can't talk right now. Sorry. Front desk? What are you doing? Where are you that you couldn't attend the funeral? We're at a hotel. We're in Miami right now. What? Well, we got a long break for mourning. It's like a belated honeymoon for us. Skipping the funeral and using the mourning period for a honeymoon. I was speechless at their absurd reasoning. But Wendy's next words shocked me even more. I'm really grateful to my father-in-law. Thanks to him, we're having such a luxurious honeymoon. What do you mean? You didn't notice? We borrowed the passbook and seal from the family's safe and used his savings. What did you say? There was only one safe in our house. A small drawer with a lock, where we had always stored the family's valuables. Only Dad, Jamie, and I had keys to the safe. I was managing Dad's key, so Wendy must have borrowed Jamie's to open it. Far from being ashamed of her actions, she bragged about them. We did it while you were busy scurrying around. Do you know, once the death certificate is submitted, we can't withdraw the money? As soon as we got the call from the hospital, we rushed to the bank. I hurried a lot. While I was at the bank, Jamie handled the travel and car rental arrangements. It was all his plan. Smart, aren't we? I was speechless at their audacity, reminiscent of looters in a disaster. Thanks to that, we could travel around Miami in a luxury rental car, stay in fancy hotels, and already spent $30,000. There's still money left, and we plan to enjoy the trip until the last moment of our holiday. Nice, right? Wendy kept chattering away, oblivious to my silence. Wait a minute. Remembering Dad's bank account balance, I realized something was off. I couldn't help but chuckle at the possibility. Wendy, puzzled by my sudden laughter, asked me, "What's so funny?" "We have a right to inherit, you know." "Or what, are you upset because you didn't get a share?" Still laughing, I replied. "Tell me, did you check the name on the account properly?" "Huh? The name?" "Yes, I checked it thoroughly." "Well, I guess there's no point in telling you anything. Do as you like." "Don't worry. I wasn't planning to take any inheritance anyway." With that, Wendy hung up the phone, clearly annoyed. Perfect. Time to teach those two a lesson. A few days later, Jamie and Wendy returned home in high spirits. While I continued to clean the house, I spoke to them. You said you're buying a condo, so you won't be staying in this house, right? If you need it, I can put you down as the owner. No need for this old place. We plan to move out soon. Do whatever you want with it, sis. All right. I'll take care of the house then. There's probably not much left in the house. That's worth money after Dad's pre-death arrangements. But if there's anything you want as a keepsake, feel free to take it. No, thanks. We don't want to bring old stuff to our new place. Wendy said haughtily, then she and Jamie left to look for houses. It suited me fine that they wouldn't help with the cleanup or paperwork. After they decided to buy the condo, I proceeded to let go of the family home. I moved to an apartment closer to my workplace. Soon after, I received a rare call from Jamie. He sounded quite panicked. Sis, did you take my money? My savings, they're almost gone. Just as I thought. I calmly asked him. I wouldn't do that. But when exactly was it withdrawn? Right before our honeymoon. Jamie mumbled the date and time. At that time, I was still at the hospital. It was shortly after the doctor told me Dad had passed away. I was busy with the paperwork for the city office and funeral arrangements. You can check with the hospital if you doubt me. I didn't have time to rest after that either. Perhaps the call was on speaker, as Wendy's surprised voice was faintly heard. What's going on? You didn't accidentally take my passbook instead of Dad's. Just as I thought. Dad's savings were almost empty due to the pre-death arrangements. What? Their baffled voices overlapped. The two, who never helped with Dad's care or pre-death arrangements, wouldn't have known. When Mom passed, we forgot to withdraw the money and the account got frozen. Plus, there wasn't much insurance coverage for the funeral expenses. It was tough. Dad didn't have much savings left because of someone's fault. So we withdrew the remaining for the funeral per Dad's request. Even if Wendy and Jamie took Dad's passbook, there is nothing for them to withdraw as it was empty. Moreover, Dad's name is James Anderson, and my brother's name is Jamie Anderson. In the dim light and a rush, the chance of a mix-up wasn't zero. Wendy angrily confronted me. Sister, that's awful. Why didn't you tell us when you called? Why should I have to tell you? You two used your own savings for a trip, right? There's nothing for me to say. They had even skipped their own father's funeral. I had no reason to be kind to them. What are we going to do now? We can't pay the down payment for the condo tomorrow. Don't ask me. It's all your fault for making such a plan. I could hear them arguing over the phone. If you can't move into the condo, maybe you should look for an apartment for now? Huh? Why should we rent an apartment when we can live in the old house for free? What are you talking about? Jamie's comment made me frown. Exactly. We'll stay there until we save up for the condo. Just pay us $200 a month for maintenance. And you two will be happy to keep the family home, right, sis? These two were beyond help. They were excited as if everything was settled. I had no choice but to confront them with reality. That's not possible. Why not? You live alone and don't you want to help your cute little brother? That's not the issue. The family home is already in the process of being sold. What? The honeymoon and condo. Jamie and Wendy seemed to have been too caught up in their own world to notice anything else. I could almost see their bewildered faces. You don't remember? I checked with both of you. You said you didn't need it, so I made the decision. You should leave quickly. Goodbye. Wait. I hung up before Jamie could say more. I couldn't deal with such a clueless couple any longer. I blocked Jamie's and Wendy's numbers. At the end of the month, I visited our family home just to be sure and found that Jamie and Wendy had already moved out. I was relieved to see they had actually left. Subsequently, the sale of our family home was completed, and after a while, the money was transferred to me. It was unavoidable. I had to share it with Jamie. I decided to unblock his contact. Almost as if he had been timing it, Jamie called me right after. Perhaps he had been trying to contact me daily, despite being blocked. The thought of his persistence sent a shiver down my spine. Honestly, I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. But I knew I had to settle the money issue to avoid future complications. I took a deep breath before answering the call. Jamie sounded frantic when he spoke. Finally. Why weren't you answering? I need help. Jamie sounded desperate. We moved into a new apartment because the family home was too big and old. But the rent and utilities are so high, and Wendy doesn't do any household chores. In short, after moving to an apartment hastily, they were struggling. Having always relied on their father, they were clueless about paying bills and doing household chores. Jamie continued to complain and whine. It seems Jamie and Wendy finally realized the extent of their pampered lifestyle. You've finally realized how spoiled you've been living. They had always begged James for money and lived off him to an extreme extent. Suddenly thrown into the real world, they couldn't adapt so easily. But the reason they turned out this way is also partly Dad's responsibility for allowing it. Since there's an inheritance to divide if they're willing to learn, I'll teach them from scratch about housekeeping and managing finances. As I was about to speak, Jamie suddenly addressed me in a wheedling tone. Hey, sis, don't you think it's partly your fault that your cute little brother and his wife ended up like this? I take back what I said earlier. I took a deep breath. They were still trying to shift the blame onto someone else. I mean, as a sister, shouldn't you be helping your struggling brother and sister-in-law with chores or something? Besides, supporting each other as siblings is the best way to honor our parents, right? Let me give you our address. The place is. Jamie continued with his self-centered proposal, not listening to me. What are you talking about? I've always told you to help out. You ignored that, didn't you? I was just a kid back then. Even as an adult, you didn't change. How can you use that as an excuse? And you, who ignored your duties and played around after Mom passed away, continued to rely on Dad. You didn't even attend his funeral when he was suffering the most. Someone like you has no right to speak about filial piety. Jamie fell silent at my words. I answered your call because I was going to distribute the money from the sale of the house to you. Really? That means... His tone brightened, which irritated me. But don't get too excited. After deducting the demolition costs of the house, there wasn't much left. Don't worry, though. Unlike you, I'm a reasonable person. I'll send you half of it via registered mail to your address. Consider it a severance. What? Don't you get it? I never want to have anything to do with you again. You've always seen our family as nothing more than helpers or an ATM. Have you ever done anything for us? Dad's kindness allowed you to ignore my advice. And now you're facing the consequences. But if you don't help me, Wendy and I can't make it on our own. Are you going to abandon your own brother? We're family. What would have happened to Dad if I hadn't come back home? People who prioritize their vacation over their father's funeral and even steal from his account don't deserve to be called family. But Wendy is to blame for that. I do feel bad about Dad. So, how pathetic. Now you're trying to blame your wife to save yourself. Dad thought of us even after being diagnosed with cancer. He liquidated all his assets to cover his funeral expenses. Because of that, there was hardly any inheritance left, but we didn't have to pay a cent. Dad fulfilled his responsibilities as a father until the end. I continued as Jamie lost his words. Also, no matter how much you regret now, the person you should apologize to is no longer in this world. Realize that. After making my point clear, I quietly ended the call. They were the ones who cut ties first. I had no intention of being kind to them or helping them out. So I sent them the money and changed my phone number and moved. Later, I accidentally found out about Jamie's life through social media. They were barely getting by with part-time jobs, using outside dining and laundromats, with their savings rapidly depleting into poverty. As a result of no longer being able to live as freely as before, Jamie and Wendy's relationship became strained. But neither of them could stand on their own, so divorce wasn't an option. Instead of supporting each other, they seemed to be living a life of mutual blame. Their situation worsened to the point where even living in an apartment became a struggle. Longing for their previous luxurious lifestyle, they accumulated debt. And their life became increasingly chaotic. Their social media was filled with posts expressing resentment towards each other and a yearning for lavishness. Meanwhile, I met my husband after moving, got married, and we were blessed with 2 children. 10 years later, we're still happy. We both work, but sharing household chores makes life much easier. I also heard that now you can't withdraw money with just a passbook and seal, which is reassuring. I let my guard down living with family and ended up in that mess. Though I wasn't directly affected, it was because Dad had made preparations to avoid burdening us. I continue to be grateful for my supportive family and offer prayers to my parents at our family altar every day.